Hello and welcome to this podcast for Electropages. I'm your host, Robin Mitchell. Today we're joined by Emerson Test and Measurement in Madrid for the Public Tech event, and it's absolutely fantastic to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Fantastic. Now, just before we dive into the very exciting conversation of the things that you've been developing, just tell the audience who you are, what you do, and what you like to do in your free time.
Wow, excellent. So Rudy Sengupta, I'm the Vice President and General Manager of the software business for Emerson Test and Measurement, formerly NI. What I do, I've been at NI for now 20 years. I started as a developer in the hardware team. I've managed different R&D organizations and done strategic planning. And in my latest role, I run the entirety of NI's software business, which spans everything from kind of our traditional test and measurement software, LabVIEW, TestStand, something we've been known for around 40 plus years, as well as some of our more latest investments we've been making around analytics and data. So that's what I do. Things I enjoy doing on my free time. So I enjoy watching college football, which is a pretty big thing in Texas, which is where I live, and hanging out with my kids. I've got wonderful kids who are 10 and 11, and spending a bunch of time with them.
In fact, on the topic of kids, I've just had my first one. He's 2 weeks old. Honestly, it's been the best experience of my life. I know, it's absolutely amazing. Little guy, Joseph, fantastic little child.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Before we dive into the children, I've got a quick question about the situation with Emerson and National Instruments. So could you sort of explain to the audience how that relationship works and what's sort of going on? Because as we tried to do a few introductions and I messed that one up a few times.
Yeah, no worries. So National Instruments was a publicly traded company. We've been around now. We're actually hitting our 50th anniversary next year. About 2 years ago, we were acquired by Emerson Electric, and we are now an independent division operating under Emerson. So we are technically Emerson Test and Measurement, but we still retain the NI or the National Instruments brand, and we operate relatively independently as a separate P&L within the Emerson business.
Fantastic. Now that clears everything up for me, because I thought it was the other way around. I thought National Instruments was the one who bought Emerson, but no, right, that way, that's perfect.
That's right.
So we actually came to your facility about, I think it was last year in Austin, Texas, which was honestly a fantastic experience. And you were doing a lot of interesting stuff with AI. So I would love to ask you now, tell us what's been going on in this field and what you guys have been developing.
Yeah, so really enjoyed having you there last year. We've been investing in our broader portfolio for obviously many years. We have a hardware and software defined portfolio that where software has been kind of at the heart of all of the differentiation that we've delivered into the market. And again, a key investment area for us for many decades. And we saw this opportunity with data and AI, I would say relatively early. Starting in the, I'll say mid-2000s, we started investing in a lot of technology that allowed our customers to start aggregating data from all of their tools. Fundamentally, when you're doing test and measurement, you've got all these sensors out there. You're just gathering massive amounts of information and trying to make sense of that information and really get from, okay, I've got all this knowledge, now how do I actually turn that into insights and do something with it? You need some more of these advanced tools to be able to generate insights. And AI obviously has been a lot of hype more recently, but we've been investing, and frankly, not just us, but universities have been researching neural networks and artificial intelligence and machine learning for quite some time. And we've been incorporating some of these technologies into our portfolio and into our data platform. But more recently, as you said, we did announce and launch a new technology in our portfolio called Nigel. Nigel is NI's AI advisor. And what Nigel does is it's basically assists you with either designing your test solution itself or getting insights from the test data that you've essentially captured. And that was our big launch. We've been investing in kind of showing demos and private previews to some key accounts. But earlier this year, we actually launched that capability into our flagship LabVIEW as well as TestStand products.
I'd like to pick up on sort of two things, and this is quite interesting because one thing you mentioned about like AI hype, and everyone knows that like since ChatGPT came out, everyone's using it as a back end. They're kind of making all these silly tools, and the chances are most of them are going to fail. But it's also really important that you mentioned that, you know. Because when I was at university back in 2011, I remember my own professors working on graphics cards to try and make those neural networks work even back then. And I think sensor and data is one of those areas where AI is probably strongest because, as you said yourself, there's so much data. There's a lot you can do with it. So predictive maintenance, predictive learning, those kind of things.
Exactly.
So I think with that said, what I'm kind of curious about is how far back would you say that sort of like NI, Emerson, you know, how far back did you guys sort of go, we need to metadata as much as possible because this is eventually going to be used in training? How far back do you think you guys went, oh, the light bulb's turned on?
Yeah. That's a good question. So we started putting, I'll say, machine learning and AI capabilities into our products, I'd say in the mid to late 90s. Specifically, it started in an area called Vision Developer Module. We have a lot of camera interface tools, as well as cameras themselves, like smart cameras, and a lot of software that runs on those cameras or aggregates data from those cameras. And a lot of the image analysis techniques really required advanced mathematics and advanced analysis to be able to do basic things like find the center of this image that you acquired, or find some anomalies that are happening in some image you're acquiring. So we started incorporating AI techniques relatively early in the, like I said, late 90s, early 2000s. And at that time, what we realized was exactly what you mentioned, that context that comes along with the data that you've captured, to be not just analyzing the information itself, but all of the data surrounding that information. What hardware device was used to capture that information? What was the time and date? Who was the user that was actually capturing that information? So we started doing it in these kind of pockets, like Vision Development Module or Vision Assistant. And then we started applying that same methodology to other areas or applications that we got into. Condition monitoring that you also mentioned was the exact area where we started really thinking about enterprise-level data management and enterprise-level data acquisition. And that's where, again, context becomes really important, was who was the technician that acquired the data? What sensors did you use? Was your instrument in calibration? What was the temperature outside when you were acquiring this ultrasonic data or vibration data, right? Because all of that information may not be pertinent in the time that you're making the measurement, but if you go back and find a failure later, or you find that there's anomalies across multiple weeks or months or years of acquiring this data, you may want to go and analyze all these other kind of conditions that you didn't think about in the beginning. So that's when we really started putting it together. So we created a couple of different products around data management when we got into condition monitoring. So again, the short answer to your question is when we started realizing the value and the context around the data, that was probably in the late 90s, early 2000s, but really it was, I would say, in the early 2010s when we started thinking about these large enterprise-level data solutions is when we really got into it.
And so I kind of guess that you're quite grateful that you had that sort of spark even back in the 90s, thinking we should metadata all this, because then in the future it's like, oh, it's still bloody relevant. It's still usable.
That's right. Yeah.
But I think I'd like to just sort of point out, which is quite important, because National Instruments, the stuff that you guys build, Emerson, the stuff that you guys build is, we're not talking about like, oh, it's not even a high-tech multimeter. I've seen the equipment you guys build. These things are like multi-million-dollar. Each unit is effectively unique in the sense that, and this is why it comes back to the thing where you mentioned about data being critical in terms of like what machine did it, what were the environmental conditions around it. These things are like extremely advanced. So with that said, I think it's important for the audience to know that we're talking. This stuff is like designed for laboratories, high-end systems. Because
that's right.
My own brother, he's doing stuff at university at the moment with his PhD, and he's just bought some National Instruments sort of equipment. So what I really want to ask you about that, in terms of how AI is going to sort of help change this, and the tools you've been introducing, Nigel, in this case, could you sort of break down like how things would have worked before and why this new solution is kind of like making things easier for engineers?
Yeah, so I think really it's about understanding that we're not, especially in the beginning, like where we are today with generative AI and large language models, we're not necessarily at the stage where we're really revolutionizing and creating a whole new paradigm of how people do test. Not today, not yet, right? But what I really think will happen, and this is exactly what we're already seeing kind of transpire in how we're talking to our customers, is today AI is more of an advisor. Like I was saying, today, Nigel, we launched in LabVIEW and LabVIEW Plus and TestStand. What it allows you to do is helps you analyze the code you may have inherited, or it helps you find the function or the IP, or it helps you configure the hardware, or tells you, hey, this is the type of hardware that you need to be able to do this type of measurement, right? Because like you said, we have a massive portfolio of everything from take a really basic temperature measurement on my desktop, or analyze the 6G signal that we're prototyping and researching for the next generation of cellular technology, right? So today, AI is more of that advisor. AI will soon, especially the capabilities that we're incorporating in our platform, we see this turning from an advisor to more of an author. Because again, and when we talk about generative AI, the goal of the real big game changer was it can generate new content. But being able to, as you said, you can make a lot of kitschy prototypes or demos with it. You can make a meme generator, all these cool, funny things. But to generate real value, it requires a lot of work, requires a lot of training, requires a lot of really good information. So we see this transition happening from advisor to author. And eventually, we will see this operate more like an agent. And what I mean by that is parts of my workflow, parts of my task that I believe are more mundane, and I don't need to spend a whole bunch of my time really trying to over-engineer a portion of my task, I can potentially have become more quote-unquote autonomous with an agent doing that work. Things like ingest a bunch of requirements from all of these folders and put them in some sort of format where I can digitally scan them. I don't need to manually do that anymore. I can have an agent go do that, and I can have the agent read information from PDFs or Word documents or spreadsheets, right? So really what I'm seeing happen already is customers wanting us to accelerate their overall workflow, and AI being a critical component in that. And eventually, we will move from this user-orchestrated workflow or task, where the user's having to use a bunch of different tools, incorporate PDFs, and do a bunch of tasks, to where the agent becomes more and more of kind of an autonomous assistant that takes on some of those tasks. So you can now do most of your work through the AI agent versus you orchestrating all those tools yourself. And the end goal, again, being create efficiency, increase efficiency and productivity, help the customer do the tasks that they already have at hand just faster. Make them have to abstract away a lot of the mundane so they can leverage their subject matter expertise and spend more time where they can really add value versus, again, like I said, a number of test engineers I know that are incorporating spreadsheets and PDFs into really basic documents.
It's complicated.
It's really complicated.
Fragmented. And then if that employee leaves and someone else has to pick it up, it causes headaches.
Right.
I would like to ask you actually about AI in your hardware solutions. I'm kind of curious. Would you say that as time is progressing, would you say that things like signal analysis, signal capture, and all this data management, would you say it's getting more complicated, which is why we need these tools to help manage it? Because as technology changes, it almost becomes incomprehensible for a human to even put it together.
That's right. Yeah, no, so 100% correct. The complexity of the devices that our customers are designing and wanting to test is escalating at a rapid pace. So our ability to, again, simplify that for them so that they don't have to spend a bunch of time trying to deal with that complexity, and anything we can do to improve their productivity becomes really important. So yes, we do a lot of work to try to make sure that we're thinking about the next generation and the next generation and the next generation of technology that they may be working on, and how do we make sure that we reduce that complexity for them.
Because when I did the site visit in Texas and I saw the equipment you guys were making, it absolutely blew my mind. And I was sort of thinking, like, when your company started many years ago, the hardware available, the solutions would have been a lot simpler. And I'm sitting there thinking, surely have you as a company experienced this issue where, like, the stuff you're building is so advanced and so complicated, you start to think, I don't really know what's going on anymore because there's too many parts, it gets too big and it gets too complicated.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, we have this concept of an open modular platform. That's been at the heart of everything we've built. And that extensibility is really important to us. So yes, you're right. we do need to provide more complex tools and more complex capabilities to our customers to address their more complex needs. But we also know that sometimes they may be doing just a really basic temperature measurement alongside with it. So the fact that our platform is this open modular platform, and I know you got to see some of those PXI chassis that had these modules in it.
They were fantastic.
Right, and you can go from, I have a $500 instrument sitting next to a $250,000 instrument in the same chassis. That flexibility, that scalability that we provide with our platform is unique amongst our peers in this market, as well as a really key differentiator for us, to your point, where we can work on a really complex piece of equipment alongside a really basic piece of equipment, again, to meet the customer's needs.
And just to go back on another point very quickly, because you mentioned about like how Nigel can sort of like look at documents or it can sort of help you, aid you in your work. I'm guessing that as time progresses, with the older generation leaving these sort of areas of industry which require a deep understanding of RF, signal analysis, all this kind of stuff.
That's right.
Do you think that these tools are going to be essential for new people to come in, even at my age and younger, to go in and sort of be like, well, I have no idea what this guy did with these files. I need assistance to figure out what I've got to do.
That's right. Yeah, and I think that's actually the first use case that we see for Nigel as an advisor is exactly that, is a new engineer comes in, inherits some code, inherits some IP, inherits a task, and doesn't know where to start. It's either read a bunch of this code that was written 30 years ago, and it's like, well, I'm happy to read it, but if I want to change something, I'm going to break it because I don't understand it, right? So all of these things that are fragile and have tribal knowledge. So having an advisor like Nigel that can go and read that and very simply summarize things for you, and you can, using natural language, just type in with multiple languages, type in saying, okay, well, can you help me understand this part a little bit more? And if I modify this part of the code, what do you think will happen? And how do I, and all of this progression that it's going through as it kind of learns the code that you're writing is super, super helpful for these new users coming in. And actually, outside of just the capabilities that the AI gives you, I think as companies realize the value of these large language models and AI agents that they're incorporating into their workflow, I think companies will have a newer and a better appreciation for their own IP and their own data. I think they will start, and they need to, frankly, start organizing their data, capturing a lot of that context that you and I were talking about. Because again, to your point, you will have people leave the company. You will have new engineers come in that need to be able to pick up where it started. And the better we are as engineers and people in the industry in general at organizing all of our information, I think the faster and more productive the companies become.
So going into the future with these kind of technologies, do you think things like Nigel might eventually be able to take someone's data and actually train like personalized models locally to then sort of be able to better analyze that kind of data?
Yeah, what we're actually researching now is there's actually this technology called MCP, which is Model Context Protocol. It's an API that's built into a large language model that is relatively standardized, and you can then augment a large language model like ChatGPT's models or any other vendors with your own kind of tool set. There's also techniques like RAG, which allow you to basically do things like prompt stuffing, right? Where you can augment a large language model, not have to build your own, and add more context information to it so you can make that overall experience richer. We are absolutely researching ways where we can enable our customers or even our partners that are selling our tools to end customers outside of our company. How do we enable them to bring their IP and their knowledge to bear into the market? So absolutely a part of our strategy, and we for sure see that as more and more critical to industry, where companies will want their IP as part of the overall AI experience for their own employees.
Absolutely fantastic. So just before we wrap up this podcast, I've got one more question for you. For the audience who are watching this video, if they want to get involved with Emerson Test and Measurement Solutions, what would you recommend that they do?
I would highly recommend going and checking out our website. You can go onto ni.com. You can watch a lot of our keynotes from past conferences on YouTube. They're all available. There's some incredible demos of not just things we've released, but we're very open with our roadmap as well. And actually, a lot of our software roadmaps are published on ni.com, and you can actually go and just see what we're working on and what's coming up next. If you have feedback, there's a spot right there on the website to provide us feedback and interact with us. So would really love your viewers to go and check those websites out.
Fantastic. And most importantly, please invite us back to your site because it was amazing, honestly.
Oh, you're
Absolutely
welcome.
brilliant.
Welcome anytime. And you were talking about those university partnerships. We're really partnering with those universities to research some really cool new technologies. Would love to have you back and show you what we're working on.
Because you were the guys who actually you helped the what was the university that you had? You built the whole center, didn't you?
Right. You came and visited us at University of Texas in Austin.
That's the one.
Yeah, that's right. And we've got a site there. I'm an alumni of University of Texas at Austin, so I end up spending a lot of time there. We have this incredible facility where we sponsor a maker lab where students can come in of all different disciplines and work together, like a mechanical engineer and a double E can work on a new technology.
I had never felt so much jealousy and envy in my life when I saw that site. It was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was brilliant. So again, thank you ever so much for being here today. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me on. It was great.
Thank you.